As you watch the screen, your heart begins to beat faster. There's a fluttering in the pit of your stomach. Your throat is dry, your palms damp. Suddenly a chill runs down your spine. You clutch the person next to you. You tell yourself, it's only a movie. It's only a movie. But sooner or later, it's time to go home.
Good evening. Good to see so many of you joining already. 56 of you here at the moment. Thank you very much. Welcome to the horror of 1984 on this Thursday evening. 10 o'clock in the UK at the moment, or just after, 10:05. And yeah, 5 o'clock Eastern. Had a lot of fun putting this one together. There was a couple of bit of switching going on during the week. I first put the list up and there was no Terminator on there and people lost their minds. So I thought, look, you know, I'm not convinced it should be on there. And so I ran a poll. I ran two polls. I ran a poll on Instagram. I ran a poll on YouTube in my community section as well. And overwhelmingly, like 8 out of 10 of you, 80% pretty much on both polls, thought that Terminator belonged in the horror of 1984. So I'm not going to argue. I think, you know, I flip-flop with Terminator being a horror film. I think over the years I've kind of gotten used to people saying that. I guess it's whatever you think it is. It's like the old Die Hard is a Christmas film question. If it's a Christmas film to you, then great. If Terminator is a horror film to you, then great. And so I put the vote out there, and well, overwhelmingly, you guys wanted it in, so it's in. It's in. 20 movies in total. There was a little bit of an administrative error as well during the week with The Hills Have Eyes. So thank you to, I think Craig pointed it out to me on YouTube. The Hills Have Eyes 2 was actually 1985. So we'll get that next week. But 1985 is a cracking year. I think it's stronger than 84. We'll go through some of the titles from 85 when we finish this vote. But as strong as 84 is, I think 85 is actually better. But still really looking forward to this vote tonight. As I said, 20 titles. You get to live vote. The link is in the chat. I'm just going to pop it in there again. So all you need to do is click on this link that's in the chat now. This will allow you to access another screen, whereas you can live vote on the titles that I bring up. Red, if you vote on the red button, it's for the first tier. A kind of muddy yellow is the second tier. A more yellow is the middle tier. A yellowy green is the fourth tier. And green is the fifth tier. I actually wish I could make those buttons a little bit more identifiable, because people do get confused. They were going with the green button for the top last week, and so we had a load of shit that was voted at the top and a load of good stuff that was voted at the bottom. But you guys will get it. You guys will get it. Let me just have a look and see who's in the chat. There's 67 of you here right now, which is really cool. Let me just run through a few of the names that I can see in here. We have Marisol, we have Kingslayer, we have Physical Media Lives, Myers Mad 316, Tony Four Eyes, Brandon's here, Jamie Rowe, Myers Fan 73, Matt Pattinson's here, Richard's here, Movie Chat and More Part 2, Tommy G76, Teal Kit, Awesome 50. Who else have we got? Daz is here. Paul Rose is here. Hey, buddy, how you doing? Shape 78. Shamrock's here as well. Lord Kev's here. Rick M. Don Max here. Oops, I got a minute. I nearly timed someone out then. What's going on? What else have we got? Steve Ross is here. Hey, Steve. Dylan's here. And that's what she said. Nick, I think that about gets everybody. Chester's here as well. Hey, Chester. Okay. So before we start, as usual, let's just run through a few fun facts from 1984 just to kind of get you in that mindset and take you back to that year for those of you that were around then. I think I was 11 years old back in 1984. Some of you may have been older. Some of you may have been younger. Some of you might not have been alive, but you're all still welcome to take part. So here we go. So in 1984, Ghostbusters bust the box office. Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and Harold Ramis gave us one of the most quotable comedies of all time. Who You Gonna Call became a cultural catchphrase overnight. I remember it well. The Odeon Bradford. Watching this with my dad and sisters, I think, and they had all sorts of glitter balls and disco lights before the film started. They made a real meal of it back then. It was great fun. Apple launches the Macintosh. Apple introduced the first Macintosh computer with legendary Ridley Scott directed Super Bowl ad inspired by George Orwell's 1984. Also that year we had the Karate Kid. The Karate Kid becomes a sensation. Daniel LaRusso's Crane kicked his way into pop culture, history, and Mr. Miyagi taught us all to wax on and wax off. And it's still going strong. Karate Kid's still around 41 years later. Transformers rollout. The Transformers toy line and animated series debuted, giving the world Optimus Prime, Megatron, and an entire generation of fans who can still recite more than meets the eye. Prince dominates with Purple Rain. Prince's Purple Rain album and hit film in 1984, cementing him as a global superstar. The soundtrack became one of the best-selling albums ever. Tetris is born. Russian programmer Alexei Pajitnov created Tetris in 1984, kicking off one of the most addictive puzzle games of all time. And the first PG-13 rating appears. Remember we talked about this last week or a couple of weeks ago with Poltergeist, where that kind of was one of the catalysts for the MPAA to bring in a new rating. So after Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and Gremlins sparked parental outrage, the MPAA introduced the PG-13 rating. Anyone know the first film to carry it? Well, this is kind of like a bit of a hotly debated topic because a lot of people think it was Red Dawn. But I actually think, if you look into it, I actually think it was the Flamingo Kid. I think it was the Flamingo Kid that was awarded the first PG-13 rating. It just came out after Red Dawn. But I think the Red Dawn was maybe the first one to be released, if I remember right. Apple versus Pepsi. The Cola Wars heat up. Let me just refresh that page. The Cola Wars heat up. Michael Jackson's Pepsi commercials debuted in 1984, turning the soda wars into a full-blown pop culture spectacle. What else have we got? The Summer Olympics in Los Angeles. 1984 Olympics were a spectacle of color and commercial success, and Carl Lewis? Yeah, him too. Carl Lewis became a track and field legend by winning 4 gold medals. And the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles debut. The very first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comic was published in 1984, setting the stage for an animated series. Toys, movies, and decades of pizza-loving turtle power followed. Excellent. Okay, so that's 10 facts about 1984. No really kind of bleak facts. I've left all those out this time. Falklands War and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's a good year. It's a very good year. And you'll see that we're going to kick off with a big movie from 1984. The tier maker kind of starts them in alphabetical order, and then as it goes on, it tends to jumble them up. So the first film that we're going to talk about from 1984 is... I can just switch over here. Nightmare on Elm Street. Released on November the 9th, 1984, with a budget of just over $1 million and a box office gross of $57.1 million worldwide. Let's start the voting on A Nightmare on Elm Street. There you go, folks. 90 seconds to vote on A Nightmare on Elm Street being your favorite horror movie of 1984. I have a feeling this might well stay in the top tier, possibly in first place all the way through. Critics were very positive. Most sites list it as a classic. Strong positive reception, consistent with its classic status. Wes Craven directed, and music by Charles Bernstein. Heather Langenkamp, John Saxon, Ronnie Blakely, Amanda Wyss, Robert Englund, and Johnny Depp in his film debut. 50 seconds left, folks. In the fictional town of Springwood, teenagers suffer nightmares inhabited by Freddy Krueger, a burnt child killer who stalks them in their dreams. Nancy and her friends try to uncover the truth and stop him before sleep becomes lethal. Myers Mad says, "You ain't fucking about tonight, Darren. Let's go." 30 seconds left, folks. Now widely considered a horror classic, it was praised for its surreal imagery, the fusion of supernatural and slasher elements, and inventive kills at the time of release. It received acclaim relative to its modest budget. And 10 seconds left. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And we're paused. So, 33 of you voted it in first place. 3 of you in second, 1 in third, and 1 in fifth. Clearly somebody thought that the green button was first place, but no. I can't believe anybody would put this in fifth place. Let's see what you guys thought about Nightmare on Elm Street. 72 of you in the chat. Folks, if you could just give the little like button a tickle, that'd be really helpful. And if you're new, welcome, and maybe consider subscribing. That'd be great as well. Jason Lidgear says, Heather Langenkamp carried Nightmare on her back. She was phenomenal and only 20. I agree. It took me a while to get my head around as an 11-year-old. When I first saw Nightmare on Elm Street, it was kind of unconventional. It wasn't like, watching Jason or Michael, because this guy was in your dreams. And so it took me a while to kind of get my head around that and appreciate it as a young lad. But it wasn't long before I did. I think by the time I'd seen Elm Street 2, I kind of really got it and just kept going back and revisiting the original Elm Street. Paul says, life was fun in the 80s. What went wrong? I agree. I wish I could go back. I wish I could go back to around about 65 or something like that and start from there. And then I could kind of experience the whole late 70s as a kind of teenager and the early 80s and throughout the 80s and experience all that kind of horror as a mature adult rather than the whippersnapper that I was back in 1984. That'd be really cool to do that, wouldn't it? Shamrock says it's not horror because it's not scary. It's a robot from the future stalking one woman who's the mother of the leader of a future rebellion. Yeah. Well, 80% of the vote disagree with you on that, Shamrock. Okay. Let me see what else we've got in there. David Doughty says, is this the winner already? Could be. I agree. It could be. Kingslayer says the same. Winner already. Awesome 50 says, what can be said about Elm Street? Absolute classic. One of the best horror movies ever. And Tony Four says, I have to accept bloody cookies. You've been doing it 4 weeks. Of course you do. Lee Wilson says, this could be one-sided all night. I think this could be, I think you're probably right. This could well be a battle for second place, I think. Because remember, with each episode that we do, 2 movies will go through to the final episode 11 that I'm going to do on this. We're on episode 5 at the moment, and we'll have a kind of basically a shoot-off in the last episode, whereas the top two movies from each episode will go together in one final vote to decide the ultimate winner of the 80s. Daz says, Nightmare, not only my favorite horror, but my favorite of all time. Very important to my childhood. I think that, you know, that stands for a lot of people as well. Jester says, I enjoy Nightmare on Elm Street every year during the spooky season. Definitely the best Wes Craven movie he did. I think I might agree with that, actually, Chester. Brandon says, the person who voted last place likes clown in a cornfield. Okay. There's a lot of comments on Nightmare on Elm Street here. Everybody's saying how great it is. Nightmare ain't a perfect movie. The ending lets it down. Nightmare Part 2, however. Yeah, a lot of love for Nightmare Part 2 these days. 40th anniversary in November this year, I believe, of Nightmare Part 2. Terminator will win. King of the Slashers, says Tony Four Eyes. And Andy Blake says, sup, Darren? Sup, Andy? Toy Story scares me. Toys coming alive, terrifying, says Shamrock. Okay, let's move on to the next vote. What have we got here? It is Threads. Oh my God. I did a short on this during the week. I think a lot of Brit followers will have seen Threads because, you know, we're all of a similar age here. We were all kind of at school or whatever when Threads first came out, told to watch it by our teachers, encouraged to watch it because it was right in the middle of or towards the tail end of the Cold War, and about a nuclear attack on Sheffield in Yorkshire, which is Yorkshire, my home county. I even know some people that know exactly all the filming locations. Chris Chiswick, he said it was filmed down his road. Okay, first broadcast in the UK on the 23rd of September 1984. Remember, folks, if you haven't seen the movie, just abstain because we don't want all the voting getting screwed up. 40 seconds left. A budget of 400,000. Wow, that was quite expensive. So no box office data on this at all. Directed by Mick Jackson. Mick Jackson? I think he went on to direct Volcano with Tommy Lee Jones, if I remember right. Mick Jackson? That rings a bell. Karen Meager, Reese Dinsdale are among the leads in this. 20 seconds left. In Sheffield, life is disrupted when international tensions lead to nuclear war. The film follows 2 families through the immediate and long-term horrors, societal collapse, radiation, famine, disease, and generational trauma. 1 second left. There we go. Threads is first in third place. I'm surprised, actually. I thought only 18 of you voted on this. 5 of you put it in first place. 4 of you in second. 7 of you in third. 1 of you in fourth. And 1 of you in fifth. Yeah, I hope people aren't voting that haven't seen it. Because I don't know anybody that's seen Threads and thinks it's a bad movie. Let's have a look at this. Not seen Threads, so not voting, says Kingslayer. The last episode will be the 80s horror Thunderdome. 10 movies enter and 1 movie leaves. Be 20 movies enter that one, because we're doing 2 from each year of 1980. Dream Warriors was great, but I love Dark as Fuck. Freddy Part 2, for me, it's the best one for that alone. Lee Wilson says about Threads, a movie you need to watch, but only once. Brandon says, Threads gets a tier deduction for making me want to stick my head in the oven. Truly horrifying. It is. There's no upside to this film whatsoever. It's just bleak as fuck. Dad says, Threads, great film, but something to only watch once. I've seen it a couple of times. I saw it, obviously, when it first came out around that time. And then I have a Blu-ray of it, the really cool Blu-ray, the remastered version that came out a few years ago. Threads is one of the hardest films to watch. Still every bit as powerful now as it was then. Terrifying stuff. It is. And you know what? A lot of it that's terrifying is all the little information bits that are peppered throughout the film. The kind of the text on screen that just tells you how the tensions are escalating and then, you know, what happens after the bomb's dropped or it's detonated over Sheffield, if I remember right. It detonated over and then... Actually, I can't remember now. And the aftermath and how many people have died. And it's just rough. It really is rough. Threads is very good, but goes on too long. Drags a bit at the end, 13 years later. Echoes of the Unknown says, wouldn't need much set dressing to make Sheffield look like a nuclear wasteland. Oh, ouch. Feast Your Peepers Collins says, hey, Sandsman, stop stealing my quotes. Tickle your like button somewhere else. Is it you that said that? Was it you? Is that where I've got it from? Sorry, Colin. Threads is superb. Grimmer than a day trip to Chernobyl. Chernobyl's a good old series as well. Okay, let's move on to the next vote, and it is The Toxic Avenger. Jesus, what a film. Okay, released in 1984. There's no actual release date here. Budget of $500,000. Directed by Michael Hertz and Lloyd Kaufman. Cast of Andre Miranda, Mitchell Cohen, Pat Ryan, Jennifer Baptiste, Robert Pritchard, and others. A bullied mop boy named Melvin falls into a vat of toxic waste and transforms into a deformed but heroic mutant who takes vengeance on criminals and corrupt officials in Tromaville. 70% on Rotten Tomatoes. A cult favorite for its over-the-top gore, black humor, and offbeat punk sensibility. Memorable moments include the transformation from Melvin to the Toxic Avenger and violent revenge sequences showing the mutant punishing criminals in bizarre and graphic ways. 35 seconds left. The movie, look, I know Frank's a massive fan. Obviously, the first superhero of New Jersey, he says. I could take this film or leave it. I haven't seen the remake either. I will do when it comes along. The original Toxic Avenger, I'm just like, I've seen it. It was okay. No intention to see it again. No intention to buy a 4K or a Blu-ray of it or anything. It just not something that really, floats my boat, as it were. But, and time's up now. You guys seem to think it's okay. 27 of you voted on this one. First, 4 of you voted it in first place, 5 in second, 12 in third place, 5 in fourth, and 1 in fifth. So it's currently first in the third tier ahead of Threads. Anybody see the remake that came out recently? Mainly, I think most people thought it was really good, right? Where are we now? Toxic Avenger is fun trash, but I can't pretend it's a good movie. Yeah, I'm kind of like that with it as well. Kingslayer says, I saw Toxic Avenger and thought it was garbage, so put me off watching the sequels. Don Mack says, the Toxic Avenger is a bit too silly for me. Brandon says, I could watch Toxic Avenger almost every day. It's so silly and grotesque, but I love anything that knows what it is. But yeah, that's kind of a good point. It does, its tongue's firmly in its cheek, and it's not, it just kind of exploits itself knowing exactly what it is. It doesn't try to be something that it isn't. Echoes of the Unknown says, I wanted to call my cat Melvin years ago, but got overruled. Daz says, Toxic, a decent trash, fun, but I prefer the fourth one. Fourth one? Did they do 4? I knew they'd done 2 or 3, but I didn't realize it was 4. Tony Voorhees says, Troma shite. Okay. Paul says, I reasonably enjoyed it at the time, but it was very much of its time. I can't imagine wanting to watch it again these days. Yeah, I'm with you on that, Paul. Exactly. Nick says, Frank's going to block you next time you're in the TSL chat there. What did he say? Oh, I've never seen it, to be honest. Yeah, I think it's worth watching once, Colin. You'll probably appreciate it for the, you know, the bit of tut that it is. Okay, right, let's kick off the next vote. And we're going with, oh, Terminator. Terminator. Right in there. Let's have a look. Let's put that link in the chat again just to make sure everybody's got it. So, the Terminator, 1984. It was kind of late 1984, I think, wasn't it? Let me just double check. Yeah, October 26, 1984. Budget of 6.4 million. A box office of 78.3 million worldwide. That's a great return. Directed by James Cameron, music by Brad Fiedel, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Linda Hamilton, Michael Biehn, Paul Winfield. A cyborg assassin is sent back in time from 2029 to 1984 to kill Sarah Connor, whose unborn son will lead humanity's resistance. A soldier from the future is also sent back to protect her. Reviews were mixed to positive on release, especially for its direction, effects, and tight execution given its budget. Regarded as a landmark sci-fi action horror crossover, launching Cameron and solidifying Schwarzenegger's action hero status. It's in second place on the first tier at the moment. 36 of you have voted on the Terminator. Will it be improved upon? I'm sure there'll be some of you that are sniffy about this with it being in the poll. It has elements of horror in there, particularly in the first 15, 20 minutes, whereas Cameron's admitted that, you know, he treats him like a slasher with a gun instead of a knife. And I did some digging on this as well the other day, and he's openly said in interviews that he was heavily inspired by Michael Myers when creating the Terminator, which kind of... He was also heavily inspired by an episode of The Outer Limits as well, which he's, known for stealing the idea from. Frank and I did an episode on this a couple of years ago, and he had to settle, I think, with the guy, the creator of Outer Limits, or the guy that wrote the story. I can't remember. Frank knows all about it. So not only did he rip off Halloween, he ripped off The Outer Limits as well. But it's a fantastic movie, one of my favorites, and whilst I'm not 100% convinced it should be in this vote, it is a movie that I think is the finest one in the whole franchise. Even better than 2, I think. What do you guys think in the chat here? So it's finished second. 29 of you placed it in first, 6 in second, 1 in third, 1 in fourth, 1 in fifth. So it's kind of, let me have a look there. There were more voters. Oh, just the same amount of voters, sorry, to A Nightmare on Elm Street. But more of you voted Nightmare on Elm Street in first place. 33 of you voted it in first place, whereas 29 of you voted Terminator in first place. We've still got some other heavy hitters to come. Friday the 13th, part 4. I'll be interested to see where that one lands. Okay. Teal Kit says, thank you for having Terminator. The GOAT has arrived. Watch out, Nightmare. Terminator, an absolute perfect movie for me, says Awesome 50. Brandon says, I wonder which tier Shamrock is putting this one. He'll put it in the bottom just to be a bloody arsey bugger, won't you, David? Terminator is top tier for me. Whoever thinks Terminator isn't a horror movie at this point is on acid. Wow. Terminator is one of my all-time favorite movies. I'm refusing to vote on this because it's not a horror slasher. Rando75 says, hated Terminator when I saw it as a kid, watched it years later, enjoyed it quite a bit. Okay. Paul says, fantastic film, still as fresh today as it was on release, an all-time classic. Myers Mads 316 says, "You're a good man, Shamrock. Now just admit it's horror." Cameron has said it is influenced by Halloween, so that makes it a horror. Arnie works great as a baddie. Yeah, he did. I dug up some interviews the other day with it. Myers Fan 73 says the Terminator is a great sci-fi actioner, but it's not a horror film. No, it shouldn't, Darren. No, it shouldn't. What? I don't know what did I say that you're disagreeing with? I put it in second place for being a sci-fi horror film, and it shouldn't overtake Elm Street. Yeah, I like your thinking there. That's good. Horror is derived from the word horrific, so they don't come more horrific than this, but it's still not a horror. It's like, it's just like contradicting yourself. Saying Terminator isn't a horror is like saying Alien isn't a horror. It's sci-fi. Come on, people. It's a damn good horror. Right. A lot of controversy over this one. Some of you think it is. Some of you think it isn't. But, you know, I think the general consensus feel it is a horror. I'm not saying I agree with that. But, you know, we put it in there and it could go through to the final. Who knows? It's in second place right now. Okay, let's kick off the vote for the fifth title, which is The Mutilator. The Mutilator is released on October the 5th, 1984, with a budget of $1 million. They spent $1 million on this piece of shit. Okay, fair enough. It has a very a low profile on Rotten Tomatoes. Mixed responses from slasher and horror viewers due to its effects and structure. Directed by Buddy Cooper. 60 seconds left, folks. Matt Mittler, Bill Hitchcock, Ruth Martinez, Connie Rogers, Francis Rains, Maury Lampe, and Jack Chatham star. A group of college students travel to an island retreat during fall break to visit Ed Jr.'s family property. His father, Big Ed, traumatized by a past tragedy, lies in wait and violently hunts them one by one. Initially seen as a regional B-movie slasher with strong gore but weaker pacing and character development, in retrospective reviews, it's praised by gore fans for its creativity, its kills, and regional horror charm. I did like the tagline on this. Was it something like along the lines of by axe, by knife, by hook, by or something like that? I think I have it somewhere in here. I think Arrow released it a few years ago. 2 seconds left, folks. 1, and the vote is up on The Mutilator, and it's currently in last place, third place in the third tier. One of you voted it in first, 1 in second, 6 in third, 5 in fourth, and 2 in fifth. Another banger, says Myers Mad 316. You like The Mutilator? Okay. Oh, The Mutilator is a gem, says Shamrock. Oh, this piece of shit. What a glowing reference. Well, it's true. Come on. Listen, it's just 1, 2. At this point, those kind of slasher movies, this was sort of, but if you haven't been able to develop a franchise at this point, then, you know, everybody else should just give up, I think. There were so many slashers in the early 80s, and this for me was just a bit sort of one too many, I think. Haven't seen Mutilator, no vote. I don't remember ever seeing this, in no hurry to correct that. That's kind of, again, it's worth a watch. Mutilator for me is one of the finest slasher films ever made. Love the story and the dad being so deranged to want to kill his own son. Brilliant. Okay. Yeah, I get that. It's yeah. I don't think it's enough to make it that's enough to make it a great film, but I guess, you know, if that's your opinion, fair enough. Tony Four Eye says, I think I've seen this, but remember nothing. That's pretty much how I felt when I saw it. I didn't see it when it first came out. It wasn't until years later when I actually first saw it. And I was just sort of, whatever. Mutilator I had fun with, but never rewatched my Arrow Blu-ray. Mutilator 2 is on Amazon Prime, stateside, and released in Blu-ray today. Okay. $1 million? Shit, I spent £16 on a Blu-ray and I was well pissed off with what I got. It could be that Wikipedia's got their budget wrong on this. It does feel like a hell of a lot of money for a movie such as this. Darren Garrett says, hello from Perth, Australia, Darren. First live stream as a participant as it's 5:30 a.m. here. Morning, sir, and thank you for joining us. Thank you, Darren. Good to see you in here. How many we got in here at the moment? We got 100 watching at the moment. Fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. Welcome, everybody. If you haven't yet voted, you may vote via the link that's pinned in the chat. I'll just pop it into the chat again. There we go. It'll take you to an external website where you can live vote once I activate that vote. 103 watching. Thank you so much, folks. If you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, that would be great as well. It'd really get the word out there about this. And if you're new, consider subscribing. I'd really appreciate that. Okay, let's kick off the next vote. So the next vote is for The Company of Wolves, a British horror movie we're going to talk about now. Directed by Neil Jordan. Music by George Fenton, released on the 21st of September, 1984. The US didn't get this until 1985. A budget of $2 million, a gross of $4.3 million. Sarah Patterson, Angela Lansbury, David Warner, Mika Burgess, and others star. A dark, dreamlike retelling of Little Red Riding Hood, interweaving tales of wolves, sexuality, transformation, and fairy tale motifs as a young girl dreams of wolves and danger in the forest. I was always a bit sort of... This movie never quite did it for me. I think there was one or two... There's some nice effects in there. But as a movie itself, I just don't feel it holds together. It's kind of like a bit of an anthology. It just doesn't hold together for me that well. I've gone back to it a few times over the years. But, you know, when you had movies that came out a few years before, like The Howling and American Werewolf in London, it just doesn't kind of stand up to those films. I don't think it even stands up to Howling 2, but... No, it's Company of Wolves was a bit more kind of upmarket, I think, than The Howling and An American Werewolf in London. Probably given its director, Neil Jordan, but yeah, interesting little movie if you've never seen it before. Myers fan says it's just boring gothic crap. Angela Lansbury was hot in the 50s. Mrs. Potts could get it. What? Can't in good conscience vote. Don't remember enough about it. Just average transformation and recall it being boring. It is a bit boring. It's almost like borderline art house werewolf movie, this film. Just pulled a Frank with one of those obscure movies no one heard of. What? Company of Wolves? Really? Okay. Well, you know, it's second place at the moment, Tommy G76. One of you voted in first place, 7 in second, 5 in third, 3 in fourth, and 1 in fifth. Yeah. Why is it in seven? I guess the average in the top are, yeah, because so many voted in second, I think. 7 in second. Let me just have a look at this versus Toxic. Yeah, that's why. Because 7 people voted it in second place. That's why it's in second. Howling 2 is fun schlock. We'll get on to Howling 2 next month. Sturber. I really like the dark fairy tale setting of the Company of Wolves, says Don Mack. Nick says, great poster nonetheless. Physical Media Live says, ahem, young Darryl. Neil Jordan is Irish. Went to the same school as me. I didn't say he wasn't Irish. Did I? I said it was a British film. Did I say he was a Brit director? I said it was a British film. I thought you said in her 50s, brother. In the 50s, yeah. Feast Your Peepers Colin says, I used to rent it out quite often as a kid, but it's a tad patchy watching it now. Yeah, some of those wolf transformations don't really stack up like they used to do. Teal Kit says, fun fact, the best werewolf movies are free on Tubi, Dog Soldiers, The Howling, Wolf of Snow Hollow, Wolf and etc. Yeah, those are some good movies. Although Wolfen's not a werewolf movie. A lot of people think it is. It isn't. It's got wolves in it, not werewolves. I'd rather watch paint dry than watch Company of Wolves, says Tony Four Eyes. Tony Four Eyes says, dog soldiers is dog shite? Really? You're in a bad mood, Tony. What is going on? Neil Jordan would make the amazing Mona Lisa a couple of years after this. Underrated. Okay, right. Let's kick off the next vote. And it is... Oh, Terror in the Isles. One of my favorites. Let's see how this does. Kind of documentary. Those of you that have seen In Search of Darkness, back in the 1984, there was a sort of version of In Search of Darkness called Terror in the Isles, which was essentially a documentary about horror. And those of you that saw the short that I did earlier in the week would know that it's hosted by Donald Pleasance with Nancy Allen. And they take you through the history of horror from sort of like, well, kind of Frankenstein onwards. It kind of encompasses about 80 films. And for me as a kid, was a bit of a Bible for horror films. I learned a lot about horror from this documentary. I learned about certain movies that maybe weren't available in the UK at the time because of the Nasties ban and things like that. You know, Exorcist wasn't available to us in the UK at this point. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I don't think was available. It had been available, but I think it was removed. And so there was so much stuff on this movie that made me want to go out and search for all these VHSs. 10 seconds left to vote. And I'm so glad it's top tier at the moment. 5 seconds, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Voting's over. So released on October the 26th, 1984. Took 10 million at the box office, which was great stuff. And I think one of the reasons why it took that money was, if you look at you can't really tell from the poster that's on the screen there, but the skull is built up of the names of all the people that are in the clips in this film. And it makes it look like it's the cast of the movie. So I'm sure that a lot of people were duped into seeing this, not knowing that essentially it's just one long 84-minute trailer for horror films. But it is a lot of fun. Brandon says you can watch Terror in the Isles right here on YouTube. Highly recommend this film. Oh, it's got the issue with it though, folks, is that back then, watching this movie, it would spoil all the horror films because it would basically show you all the best bits. The werewolf transformation from an American Werewolf, the head explosion in Scanners, the meat hook scene in Texas Chainsaw. What else have you got in there? Michael blowing up in Halloween 2. Michael getting stabbed in the neck in the original Halloween. Every movie, every big horror movie from the 60s, 70s, and early 80s was just spoilt by this documentary. But watching it now, it's still a lot of fun. It really is a lot of fun. And if you get the Scream Factory Blu-ray of this, there is a TV cut, which includes a hell of a lot more movies that weren't in the original cut because they had to soften it down. But it also includes a lot of thrillers as well. So there's a lot of Hitchcock thrillers in there. Even movies like the likes of Vice Squad, if you remember that. Nighthawks is in there. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't necessarily fall under the horror umbrella, but I guess terror. So well worth a watch. And if you haven't seen it, please do check that out. Check it out on that link that Brandon's posted. Movie Chat More says, I love The Beast Must Die. Terror in the Isles walked so in search of darkness could run. Terror in the Isles is a good guide on movies to seek out. It is, absolutely. Late coming to Terror in the Isles, apart from the great Donald Pleasance, I found it dull in the digital age. Oh, come on, Daz. I think for me, it was just a hell of a like I say, for a lot of people who grew up in the early 80s, it was just a real Bible for horror. Echoes of the Unknown says, what's the name of that film with Pleasance where he's investigating the underground? That would be Raw Meat, or Deathline, as it's known as well. It's a gun watch and worth it for Pleasance. I have you're trying to say good. A good watch and worth it for Pleasance. I have it on Blu-ray somewhere. I think it was on Extra on a Halloween 2 release. It is. If you have one of the early Scream Factory Halloween 2 releases, it's actually an extra. The full movie is an extra on that. Although the Blu-ray that Scream Factory did is kind of fully remastered and looks a hell of a lot better. Colin says, still have the original UK VHS of this. I've watched this countless times as a kid. My Bible back then. Yep, absolutely. Mine as well. Lee Wilson says, never heard of this. Added to my watch list. Thanks. Just bear in mind, it's 40 years old. But you might still find some films on there. You'll find yourself kind of trying to name every movie on there because they're it's cut in like, it's almost like a bunch of trailers. And a lot of the shots that you get in there are real quick flashes. So you will be kind of like scratching your head sometimes as to, I've seen that, but I can't quite remember it. Myers Fan 73 says, better than In Search of Darkness. Still got its 80s vibe, and I agree it was great as a Bible for UK kids at the time. Terror in the Isles is the daddy, says Tony Four Eyes. I got to see the great Nighthawks because of this. Nighthawks is such a good film. I haven't watched Wolf, and everybody says it's a werewolf movie. No, it's not a werewolf movie at all. No. It's about a serial killer, I believe. If I remember right, it's about a serial killer who's killing people. I think he's like there's some sacred ground that there's a building project that's going to happen. And I think he's I don't know the right word for this. Is it Native American now? And he's killing people because they're going to build on this ground that they once owned, I think. And yeah, the wolves are used within that process. Tony Forrest says, I used to have a Terror in the Isles poster. Gutted I don't anymore. I think Brandon's got one. He sent me a picture of it. It's a great poster. I find Going to Pieces, the rise and fall of the slasher film, the best doc on 70s and 80s horror. Yeah, I've got that as well. It's good. They do spoil the ending of Nighthawks because that's a great twist ending and they do ruin it. Terror in the Isles does change the music in the clips, which makes them seem different than in the original movies. Yeah, so Terror in the Isles had a score done by John Beale, which you can get on most streaming services, which is rather than, I think they were allowed to use the clips, but they couldn't use the music, or it was too expensive to use the music from the original movies. So he basically rescored the music from the movies and made them sound kind of similar. But I do like the score for Terror in the Isles. The Real K-Rock says, I seeked out Terror in the Isles based on your recommendation. It was awesome. Good. Glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, Deathline, Mind the Door. I love Deathline. It's great. Okay, let's kick off this next vote. We're not even halfway through yet. It's 10 to 11. Silent Night, Deadly Night. Okay, so released on November the 9th, 1984. Budget of $1 million, just over $1 million. Box office of 2.491 million. Remember, it got yanked from theaters after the second weekend, I think. Basically, there was a huge outcry about this movie with people protesting at cinemas and mums and dads up in arms because Santa was wandering around with an axe. Never actually made it to UK shores, so we never got a release over here because people were just afraid to distribute it because of the Video Nasties uproar at the time. So we never actually got a release in this country until... It never saw the cinema. I don't even think it saw VHS. I think it probably was DVD, probably in the 2000s when this came out over here. I think I actually saw it via VHS from the US first time round. 27 seconds left. Billy, traumatized by witnessing his parents' murder on Christmas Eve by a man in a Santa suit, grows up disturbed. On Christmas Eve, dressed as Santa, he goes on a rampage at the orphanage and around town, targeting those he sees as repressive or abusively religious. Over time, the film was removed from many theaters due to protests. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Vote is over. And Silent Night, Deadly Night. Yeah, I think it's overrated. I don't think it's a great film. I think it's pretty poorly made. I think it's hugely exploitative as well, which I don't have a problem with. But when you watch it nowadays, it kind of, you look at it and you go, wow, okay. Especially the opening scene where the kid's watching his mum go through that ordeal in the middle of the road. It's just okay. I kind of dust it off every couple of years and give it a watch, and it's good to have the I think it's a Scream. Maybe what is it? Scream Factory I've got? No, I think it's 88 Films maybe that did an uncut version of it. The scenes that they kind of restored the quality of them's not as good as the rest of the film. But it's fun. I guess it's okay. It's fun. But I agree with it being in third place there. So we had 30 votes on this. 8 of you put it in first place, 6 of you in second, 14 of you put it in third, 2 of you in fourth, and none of you voted in last position. So it currently heads, it's number 1 in third place and on the third tier. Keaton gives a great description of Wolfen in the Dream Team. Does he really? Okay. I haven't seen the Dream Team for years. Fun fact, I took acting classes with Morgan Fairchild's sister, Catherine. She lives about 45 minutes away. Very cool. Very cool. Nighthawks is a great film. Have you heard they remade Cliffhanger with a female lead? Sheesh. Yeah, they have. It's just got distribution. I think it's Pierce Brosnan and Lily James, is it? I think. I just read the synopsis today, actually. Apparently, he owns, like, I don't know, he's got some sort of ranch, and him and his daughter are kidnapped, and it's up to her to save the day. The remake's just had its premiere at Fantastic Fest. Yes, I saw that, and people were really quite raving about it. They said that Ryan Campbell's done a really good job. And it's the director is the guy who made that little Friday the 13th movie recently. I saw Cody Leach's review for it, and he really rated it. He said it was well worth a watch. Awesome 50 says Silent Night, Deadly Night is a solid slasher. Always enjoy it alongside Black Christmas as a double bill during the festive period. Yeah, like I say, I like to dust it off now and again. I don't care about any of the I think I've seen the second sequel, but I know that I have seen the second sequel for sure. 3, 4, and 5 apparently are just nothing to do with this and are just absolutely bloody awful. Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2 is a masterpiece. I think Silent Night, Deadly Night 2, most of it is like flashbacks to the first film, if I remember right. Plus the garbage day scene. Mickey Rooney led the outcry saying how sick Hollywood had become, then stars in Part 5 years later. Did he really? That is fantastic. I didn't know that. Was that the Toy Maker? There was something called the Toy Maker, wasn't there? Silent Night, Deadly Night 5, the Toy Maker. Rick M says is a really good psychological slasher exploitation film. Feast Your People says a staple in my house on Christmas Day. It's a tad shoddy, but it's a fun movie. I actually kind of like Christmas Evil as well. I know we talked about that a few weeks ago. Tony Four Eyes says, this is more of a Christmas movie than Die Hard. Kingslayer says, I like Silent Night, Deadly Night 4 as well, directed by Brian Yuzna. Did he really direct it? I didn't know that. I honestly gave up on after 2. And I don't think, if I remember right, I don't think any of the others after 2 have been released in the UK. I don't recall that at all. Shamrock Ball says, I think the Mutilator is better. Isn't that old man Peabody from Back to the Future at the start playing the grandfather? That's him. Yep. In the old people's home. Silent Night, Deadly Night meets Terrifier is coming out soon. Got great reviews. Silent Night, Deadly Night meets Terrifier? Got great reviews too. Corey Cunningham is back as Santa now on Halloween. Fans will rejoice as he's no longer beating up Michael Myers. Or the monkey as well. He was in that too, wasn't he? Cliffhanger was decent, but not good enough for a remake. We're talking about Cliffhanger now. Okay, let's kick off the next vote. Razorback. Good little film. Good little Aussie picture. Oh, my information about Razorbacks disappeared. That's fine. I can just Google. Razorback. Everybody remembers that, right? It was a kind of, in the UK, I remember it being a Thorn EMI release, one of those kind of canon releases, if I remember rightly. At the moment, Razorback is sitting in 4th place on the 3rd tier. Let's get some info on Razorback. I don't know why my info's disappeared on this. Directed by Russell Mulcahy. Of course, he directed Highlander. That's right. Set in the remote Australian outback, Razorback follows a man named Carl who travels to investigate the disappearance of his wife, a wildlife reporter. What he uncovers is far more horrifying than he imagined. A giant, feral, man-eating boar that's been terrorizing the local community. With the help of locals, Carl must face the monstrous beast in a fight for survival. And the vote is up on Razorback. It's 3rd place on the 3rd tier. Gregory Harrison, Archie Whitelaw, Bill Kerr, Chris Haywood, and David Argue. Stunning visual style. Russell Mulcahy came from the world of music videos, Duran Duran, Elton John, so the film has a hyper-stylized, surreal look, eerie blue lights, sweeping desert shots, and dreamlike lighting. The titular Razorback is a practical effects creation, a massive animatronic puppet with a menacing presence. Described as Jaws in the outback, swapping a shark for a monstrous boar. It's good. It's a long time since I've seen it. I remember, I think me and my dad renting it in the mid '80s, mid to late '80s, and yeah, that was fun. It was fun. Oops, we're going on Night of the Comet. Let's carry on with Night of the Comet. 40 seconds left on Night of the Comet, folks. Released on in November of 1984 with a budget of $700,000. 14.4 million gross. Directed by Tom Eberhardt, Catherine Mary Stewart, Robert Beltran, and Kelly Maroney, among others, in this film. 15 seconds left. After a comet passes close to Earth, most of humanity is turned to dust. Those left behind either become zombies or mutated. 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay, the vote's up on Night of the Comet. Survivors, including a pair of Valley Girls, must navigate the apocalypse, fend off threats, and find safety. It's a cult favourite, praised for its tongue-in-cheek tone, 1980s sensibility, and post-apocalyptic blend of horror and comedy. Over time, it's gained stronger reputation. I always find it really good fun, this film. Kelly Maroney, wasn't she in... Geez, what's she in now? Chopping Mall? Was she in that, I think? If I remember rightly. 5 of you put it in 1st place. 6 of you in 2nd. 5 of you in 3rd. 1 of you in 4th. 1 of you in 5th. And it's currently sitting in 2nd place on Tier 2. Razorback ended up on 3rd place in Tier 3. 5 of you voting it in 1st place. 4 of you in 2nd. 9 of you in 3rd. 3 in 4th. And 1 in 5th. Okay, let me just put the link back in the chat. Was it the same director as Chopping Mall, Night of the Comet? Okay, that makes sense. Tony 4-Eye saying, what did they spend that much money on? I would say it is worth a watch, Lee. I think there's a good Shout Factory version of it out there. Awesome 50 says, have a soft spot for Night of the Comet. One of those entertaining films I could watch again and again. It is fun. It's kind of light in tone, I guess. I guess it has a similar sort of tone as, I'm trying to think, probably Chopping Mall's a good one to compare it to. Night of the Creeps, another one that's kind of, you know, that similar sort of feel. Robin Gregor says, Night of the Comet, watched it late night on a Friday night when I was 10 in 1987. So much fun. Yeah, Brandon says, same director as Chopping Mall. The same Roger Beltran that was in Star Trek Voyager, says Physical Media Lives. Paul Rose says, I think my Razorback vote third actually went on to comment, which I would have put first. Oh, yeah, the pause didn't work and it skipped over, so apologies for that, Paul. Great soundtrack. Oh, a lot of 80s movies had great soundtracks back then. Davey Defo says, yeah, Night of the Comet is very much worth a watch. A perfect double feature with Night of the Living Dead 68. Hey, Davey. And Dad says, yes, same as Voyager, also in Eating Raoul, a great film. Okay, let's kick off the next vote. And it is for Monster Dog. I'm guessing not too many people have seen Monster Dog. I think I only watched this because Alice Cooper was in it. Although sometimes cited as 1984, Monster Dog was first released on home video in the US on June the 15th, 1986. Its theatrical release in Spain wasn't until 1988, so 4 years after. No recorded box office for this. On Rotten Tomatoes, it gets low ratings and is often panned. Directed by Claudio Fragassa. Alice Cooper plays Vince Raven, Victoria Vera, Carlos Santurio, among others. Music, 2 songs by Alice Cooper performed in the film, plus songs by Teddy Bautista. The film uses rock and musical elements integrated with horror. 36 seconds left to vote, folks. Vince Raven, a rock star, returns to his childhood home to shoot a music video. The area is plagued by violent attacks from wild dogs. As he and his crew explore, they uncover lycanthropic werewolf lore, family curses, and supernatural threats. Only 9 of you voted on this. I knew that the vote would be low on this. This was a last-minute addition. Just because I got the wrong information about Hills Have Eyes 2 and had to switch it out. So I had to find a film that would substitute it, and Monster Dog was it. Vote is over. And Monster Dog is in 5th place. I guess the 9 people that voted for it have watched it and are not fans. So nobody voted for it in first place. Nobody voted for it in second. 3 of you in third. 1 of you in fourth. And 5 of you in 5th. 90 people watching at the moment, folks. Thanks again. We topped out about 105 earlier, which was fantastic. Especially for what time is it in the US at the moment? 6 o'clock in the US. Let's have a look what the chat are saying about Monster Dog. Monster Dog is utter garbage. Monster bore, it's just crap. No vote on Monster Dog, says Steve Ross. I only watched Monster Dog last week. Alice Cooper is the highlight. Yeah, there's a few really nasty moments in there. I do have it. And I put a couple of clips in the intro video that you'll see there when he blows that guy at the top of that guy's head off. That's funny because Vince is actually Cooper's real name. It is indeed. Paul Rose says, I put it third, worth it for Alice Cooper and the music videos, but a bad movie. I've had it on VHS and still have it on disc. He only did it as they told him it would only be shown in Italy. Is that right? They lied to him. Came out in Spain in 1988. Yeah, I think I have it on digital, this film, because I remember seeing it years ago. And then I was curious to watch it again because I'd totally forgotten Alice Cooper was in it. I think maybe I watched it for an episode with Frank or something when we did something about, we did a werewolves episode or something along those lines, or when nature goes bad or something like, I can't remember. But I did watch it a few years ago and I ended up buying it on digital. So Pat says, hey, Pat, how are you doing? He says, hey, Darren, watching during dinner with the wife. Kathy says hello. Hey, Kathy. You're watching it during dinner. I hope you're talking about your dinner at home. You've not gone out for dinner and you've got your phone on the table and you're watching this. Please don't tell me you're doing that. Matt Patterson says, one of the reasons I love these videos, all the gems you can discover. I'm getting a list going of films on here that I need to check out. Yeah, maybe kind of give Monster Dog a pass, I reckon. Wordy Ward Vaughan says, yeah, wasn't Alice Cooper also in John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness? He absolutely was. He was also in Freddy's Dead as well. I take my hat off to you, Darren, watching this shite, then actually buying it. Listen, I am sensible with some of this stuff. Like, I did see this in the 80s at some point. And I did watch it for, I think I watched it for an episode with Frank. I can't remember now. And I don't think I would have paid any more than a couple of quid for a digital version of it. Richard said, just for the awesome channel. Great stuff, Darren. Thank you, Richard. Sends in £2. That's very kind of you. Paul says, yes, Wordy, a very small part as a street bum that sticks a bike through someone. Yeah, he's good in, he's very creepy in Prince of Darkness. TL Kit says, Cooper was in Prince of Darkness and Freddy's Dead. What? Of course he was. Or are you being facetious there? Okay, let's kick off the next vote. Gremlins. Will this trouble the Terminator for second place? I'm not a massive Gremlins fan. Look, I can watch it. You know, I've watched it loads of times, but I would like to have seen Spielberg's original vision, Joe Dante's original vision for this film before they decided to make it all cuddly and merchandise worthy. Released on June the 8th, 1984. The budget was around 11 to 12 million. Directed by Joe Dante, as I said, music by Jerry Goldsmith, Zach Galligan, Phoebe Cates, Hoyt Axton, Polly Holiday, and others. A young man receives a strange creature called a Mogwai. Rules: don't expose it to light, don't get it wet, never feed it after midnight, and when the rules are broken, chaos ensues. Mischievous, destructive gremlins terrorize the town. A massive hit and one of the most beloved genre films, praised for blending horror, comedy, and family fun elements. It's currently third. Can we get this film to pass the Terminator? Do you want it to pass the Terminator as the second best horror movie of 1984? Let's see, folks. 23 votes in first place. The Terminator has... We can't see until this vote's ended. The vote is now up. And it finishes in third place. So, 24 votes in first place, 5 in second, 5 in third, 2 in fourth, and 1 in fifth. The Terminator had 29 votes in first place. So it had a little way to go to, you know, to beat the Terminator, but it's in third place. It's good to see it in the top tier. Like I said, I'm not a massive Gremlins fan, but I'm glad that it's in the top tier. It deserves to be there. Where are we now? Gremlins rules, says Lord Kev. Rewatched Gremlins last night as an adult. Sorry, but I didn't care for it at all. No, Gremlins is pure and utter filth. It's worse than me taking a shite in the toilet after a Vindaloo. Really? Gremlins top tier all the way. My favorite Christmas movie. So dark and funny, says Lee Wilson. Gremlins goes straight to the top, says K-Rock. I love Gremlins. It was actually Christopher Columbus's version. All right. Gremlins is okay. Evil Ewoks really. Book is better. Love Gremlins as well as Gremlins 2, the wild sequel. Yeah, Gremlins 2. I actually quite like Gremlins 2. I actually think it's a little more fun than the original Gremlins. R.I.P. Polly Holiday, says Pat, that Halloween movie collector. Yeah, she died last week, I think. I was planning on watching P.O.D. for Prince of Darkness for the first time this spooky season. Haven't watched it. Freddy's Dead in a long time, probably since I was a kid. That's why. Oh, okay. Terminator over Gremlins. You're all drunk, says Dave. Is that because you don't believe that it's that Terminator is a horror film, or you genuinely think that Gremlins is a better movie than Terminator? Gremlins is fun, but I watched it so many times when I was a kid in the 90s that I'm tired of it. That's how I feel about Terminator 2. Just bored of it. I honestly don't get a lot out of Terminator 2 when I watch it these days because I just did it to death as a kid. Well, not even a kid. Jeez, I was 18 or 19 when it came out. Muckman Movie says, Gremlins is one of my favorite Christmas movies. Echoes of the Unknown says, fun fact, John Pertwee was going to play the Chinese shop owner. Really? Doubt that would wash today. Yeah, can you imagine if they'd have done that? Oh wow. If they'd have done the whole thing with John Pertwee, making him Chinese, that would have really sucked nowadays, wouldn't it? If Terminator ain't a horror film, then neither is Gremlins. It's a fucking kids movie, and you call yourself horror fans. Love Gremlins as a gateway horror flick. Do beware when showing to younger kids due to the Santa in the chimney story. That is dark. That is a dark moment in this film. That proves to you that this isn't a kids film. And in the UK, this movie was a 15. And a PG-13 in the US, wasn't it? Prefer Small Soldiers, which is kind of an action remake. Gremlins is a classic, but agree, would love to have seen it done totally straight. Should have been a franchise, but the live-action Looney Tunes Part 2 killed it. Gremlins is top tier for me. It has all the elements for me for a totally entertaining flick. Effects are still cracking. Better than Ghoulies. Gremlins is overrated. Agreed, Dave McRae. Gremlins is for kids. Terminator. Yada. Okay. A lot of people, it's because Terminator is a great sci-fi action film. Horror? Sure, it has some horror elements, but let's not treat it like a Netflix category where every movie ends up in 8 different genres. Get it off your chest, Dave. Okay, moving on. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 movies left to vote on. And let's kick that off again with Friday, the final chapter. Now, will this trouble the Terminator? A lot of people think this is the best one in the series. Released on April the 13th, 1984. Budget of $2.2 million. Box office of $32.9 million. 28% on Rotten Tomatoes. Critics hated this film. Fans often praise it as one of the stronger entries despite poor initial reviews. Directed by Joseph Zito. He of Rosemary's Killer. What did they call it here? Oh, The Prowler. That was it. The Prowler. It was called in the US. And also Invasion USA, he did. Harry Manfredini, Kimberly Beck, Corey Feldman, Crispin Glover, Peter Barton. Jason Voorhees, presumed dead, returns and continues his killing spree at Camp Crystal Lake, targeting a new group of teens staying near the grounds. Mixed to negative at the time of release was the sentiment, but among horror fans it's appreciated for its atmosphere, kills, and being a solid gore slasher entry. Yeah, there's some great Savini work in this and some stuff in here that we lost for the UK release. It was years before we saw Jason sliding down that machete. Absolutely. Am I right in this? This is the top. 3, 2, 1, 0. Vote over. Wow. People think this is better than A Nightmare on Elm Street. Okay, let's have a look at this. So 35 people voted this in first place, 5 in second, 2 in third, none of you in fourth, none of you in fifth. For the top tier, 35 of you voted this in first place. Elm Street had 33 votes for the top tier. Wow, I'm stunned. I thought this would have probably been second, but it's ended up being first. Okay. Interesting. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I don't know, because I love Friday Part 4. I think it is one of the strongest entries in the franchise. I think, the film is actually quite well made. It's very tense. I think it's quite scary in parts. I think Tom Savini's at the top of his game. But also, I can say the same things or similar things about Elm Street as well. I don't know. I think for me, Maybe Elm Street edges this. Let's have a look. See what you guys think in the chat. Shamrock says, thank God Dave's here to talk a bit of sense. And by the way, Gremlins is literally a comedy horror. It's not a kid's movie. Teenager, maybe. It's so aggressive, David. My favorite Friday is part 3 when Jason first dons the hockey mask. Mark Wainwright says, top tier for Crispin Glover's glorious dance moves alone. Myers Mad 316 says, not my favorite Friday, but a masterpiece nonetheless. Better than Terminator. I have to admit, no, it isn't, but it's damn good. Friday, final chapter, best slasher movie ever made. Love how dark this movie is and why Jason is hidden quite a lot until the finale. Brilliant. The Twins, Friday the 13th, part 4, were hot. Thanks, Kingslayer. Top spot, deservedly so. One of the best franchise. One of the best of the franchise. What's not to like? Says Paul. Shamrock says Friday the 13th, part 4 is great, but highly overrated. Love this Friday, but Corey Feldman annoys me. Friday final chapter is my favorite in the franchise. Says Steve Ross. Ted White did a great job as Jason in the final chapter. He did. It's probably second best Jason, maybe, after Richard Brooker. I think I prefer Brooker, but Shamrock Gremlins is a kid's movie. It's a PG. Feast Your Peepers, Colin says, my second favorite of the Friday franchise, part 2 being number 1. Friday 4 better than Elm Street? Question from Duke. Lee Wilson says, Darren thinking, thank fuck for that. It's beaten T1. I'm sort of glad it has, because putting Terminator all the way through to the final of this in 5 weeks' time or whenever it's going to be would be a bit awkward, I think, especially if it got in the top 3 or even won it, to kind of make a mockery of everything a little bit, I think. But then my fault for putting it in, I guess. It's what you guys wanted. Nightmare on Elm Street is the worst horror franchise of the big 4, says Blake. Hey, Blake. Loving it. Friday 4 should win, says Movie Chat and More. Davey Deathray says, oh yeah, this is better than the original Nightmare on Elm Street. Might not be as creepy of a premise, but it's a much better made film. Interesting. Okay. Absolutely right. Terminator won't make it to the final horror showdown as not a horror. Better than Nightmare, but not better than Terminator. The GOAT horror of 1985 goes to the Terminator, says Myers Mad. The Shape 78 says, I will give it to Final Friday. That gore is fantastic. When Savini back at the helm and all of the teens. Final Friday? I will give it to the final. You mean final chapter? Final Friday is Jason Goes to Hell. Don't do that to me. With Savini back at the helm and all of the teens were terrible, so you cheered when they were killed off. Having Tom Jarvis as a kid was smart. Okay, right. He says, I'm tired. You're tired and tetchy. Okay, right. Okay, there's a lot of comments here about how this deserved to be where it is. Interesting. That's really thrown me now. I'm sort of glad, though. I'm sort of glad with the way that top tier is shaping up. Let's do the next vote. And we have Firestarter. May the 11th, 1984. A box office of 15 million. Budget, couldn't really find a budget on this. Directed by Mark L. Lester. Drew Barrymore as a child with pyrokinetic powers. David Keith in this. Him with the big curly hair, not Keith David. David Keith, Martin Sheen, George C. Scott. Based on Stephen King's novel, a young girl named Charlie develops destructive pyrokinetic powers. A secret government agency called the Shop seeks to capture and control her, leading to conflict between her protector, parents, and the Shop. Mixed reviews. Praised for its premise and special effects, while critiqued for pacing, emotional gaps, and underwhelming execution in parts. Charlie's first fire outburst. This is one of the most memorable moments. Charlie's first fire outburst, a showdown with the agents of the Shop, and an emotional tension about her powers versus family bonds. 25 seconds to vote on Firestarter. It's currently first in the 3rd tier. 15 seconds left. Remember, folks, if you haven't voted, then probably best to abstain. just so it keeps things a little bit more realistic. 5 seconds left. 3, 2, 1, 0. And Firestarter finishes in first place in the third tier. 4 of you voted for it in first place, 2 in second, 18 in third. I think it belongs in the third tier, to be honest. 4 in the fourth, and 1 in the fifth. Did anybody see the remake that came out? Was it last year? I know Carpenter did the music for it, didn't he? And I actually like the score to it. I have it. But I never saw the film. I think it was sort of... Did it go to... Maybe it was like Peacock or something like that. I can't remember. But yeah, I never caught that. But the original Firestarter... I love fire stunts in movies. And there are some really cool ones in this. I think, if I'm right, Dick Warlock was involved in Firestarter. I think when I did that interview with Dick Warlock, he talked about it briefly, and I think his burn in Firestarter was longer than the burn he did in Halloween 2. If I remember rightly, I'd have to check the interview again, but I think he said that. Okay, see what your thoughts on Firestarter are. Firestarter has a brilliant Tangerine Dream score. Tangerine Dream do some great stuff. The Sorcerer score for me is their best. Another story, Stranger Things ripped off, says Davey. Brandon Collins says, would have loved to see what Carpenter would have done with this. I asked him years ago on Twitter what would have been different, and had he made it, and he replied, everything. Yeah, he was removed from it, right? Didn't he get taken off it for some reason? Firestarter 84 is a clear inspiration for 11 in Stranger Things. I never made that connection before. I guess it's a while since I've seen the original Firestarter, so I've kind of never made that connection. Dullsville, thought so at the time. Carpenter's next project until it fell through. Yeah. I will never forgive Firestarter team for taking it away from Carpenter. Everybody bitching about Carpenter not making this film. George C. Scott always played such a great baddie. Yeah, he did. Love Firestarter. George C. Scott was a great villain. Didn't Dick Warlock do some? He did indeed. Firestarter is a good one. Third tier. Firestarter, another film I haven't watched since a kid, says Teal Kit. Firestarter is one of the weaker films in this list, says Rick M. We got a couple of other weak ones coming up, I think. The Shape 78 says, yes, things work better. Well, I think you're talking to somebody there. Remake was hot garbage. Carpenter's score was the only redeeming quality. It is a decent score. George Wilbur and Dick Warlock are in the original Firestarter. Okay, I didn't realize George Wilbur was in there as well. 2 Myers torching each other. Yeah, the remake was passable, nothing great. I have 2 color vinyl variants though by Carpenter, great score. Yeah, I actually bought the score on digital. I didn't. It was before I'd started buying vinyl. So, but Colin, I think I've had my special editions of Halloween Kills, and Halloween Ends vinyl has shipped. You know that really nice box set that's been done. They shipped on Wednesday, so hopefully it's coming from Germany, so hopefully it'll arrive this weekend, fingers crossed. I have a feeling Frank has received his, because he said to me today, I've got a shit ton of stuff to unbox on the channel tomorrow. We're doing the best and worst of 1996 tomorrow over on TSL Movie Podcast, folks. If you want to join that stream, the link to the channel's down below in the description. And yeah, we're talking all things 1996, not horror, but just all movies that came out in 1996. 10 best and 10 worst. Okay, let's move on to 12 p.m. EST tomorrow, 5 p.m. UK time, by the way, for that episode. Right, let's kick off with Dreamscape. All right. I really had to rack my... I sat on YouTube the other day watching clips and all sorts of stuff from Dreamscape because I just didn't... I couldn't remember it at all. Absolutely couldn't remember it. It's a long time since I've seen it. I couldn't even tell you now what it was about. I have seen it for sure, and I've lost my notes, so I'm just going to pull them up. Okay, a fascinating blend of sci-fi, horror, and action that often gets overlooked, but was pretty innovative for its time. Directed by Joseph Rubin, who also directed The Stepfather and Sleeping with the Enemy. Written by Chuck Russell. Psychic Alex Gardner. 30 seconds left, folks. Psychic Alex Gardner, played by Dennis Quaid, is recruited by a government-funded research project that allows people to enter others' dreams using experimental technology. Initially used for psychological therapy, the project takes a dark turn when Alex discovers a political conspiracy. An assassin, played by David Patrick Kelly, is using the technology to kill targets, including the President of the United States, inside their dreams. So kind of a mixture of the Dead Zone and Nightmare on Elm Street. Yeah, it's I don't remember thinking much of this film when I saw it. It's, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th place in the third tier. One of you voted it in first place, 3 in second, 6 in third, 1 in fourth, and 1 in fifth. Only 12 of you voted on this one. Thank you again, folks, for not voting if you haven't seen anything. Those of you that do want to vote, I'm just going to put the link back in the chat so you can see it there. Yeah, 6th place on the third tier. Let's see what people thought of Dreamscape in the chat here. Carpenter was fired because of the reaction audiences and critics had to the thing. Wow. I didn't realize it was that. I thought it was one of those creative differences things. Colin says, yeah, I got an email from Sacred Bones saying my box set has shipped. Can't wait. Excellent. Excellent. Hopefully this weekend, fingers crossed. Love Dreamscape, says Don Mac. Nick says, is Dreamscape any good? Always wanted to see it. I couldn't. Listen, I should watch it now. I don't think I enjoyed it as an 11-year-old, but I should give it another go. Myers Mad 316 says, we are now officially scraping the barrel with Dreamscape, Darren. Okay. Fair enough. If Dreamscape is a sci-fi horror, how come Terminator isn't a horror? Just saying. Listen, I fucking put it in. What more do you want? Pat says, love Dreamscape. David Patrick Kelly was sinister. Love Dreamscape. Some interesting effects. And Mr. Spielberg, we've seen your wife's thrupney bits. Thrupney bits. Dreamscape is pretty good, says the Shape 78. Good for its time. Gotta wonder, with both Nightmare on Elm Street and Dreamscape coming out the same year, that there were probably many dream killer scripts going around and influencing each other. Yeah, I'm sure. Daz says, the only thing I know about Dreamscape is that its lackluster reaction was a concern for New Line with releasing Nightmare. Okay. It's interesting. The poster for this always gives it sort of an Indiana Jones vibe, doesn't it? Dennis Quaid was in a lot of stuff in the 80s. His best film since Jaws 3D. Daz says The Shape. Wes Craven was very naive about giving his script out to people at the time. Oh, okay. Myers Man says, I want Terminator to be number 1, Darren. Rig the votes. Make it happen. I'm sorry, mate. It's in 3rd. It might even finish 4th. We've got a few other movies to come yet. I don't think so, though. I don't think so. Okay. Right, moving on. We have Don't Open Till Christmas. This is a British horror film from 1984, released in the US on December the 7th. No real reliable box office numbers on this. It does have kind of a cult following. I think it's just about to be released by 88 Films on Blu-ray or 4K. 16% on Rotten Tomatoes. Directed by Edmund Purdom. There were a lot of production issues with the film, and I think there were a number of people that kind of shot this film. Music by Des Dolan, whoever he is. Cast, Edmund Purdom. He starred in it as well. Caroline Munro, Belinda Main, Jerry Sundquist, Mark Jones, Kevin Lloyd, and I can't remember the Bates, whatever his name is. I think, was in it as well. Is it Alan Bates? I think he was. A killer in a translucent mask murders people dressed as Santa Claus in London during Christmas. Scotland Yard investigates as the body count rises. 20 seconds left, folks. Viewed as a low-budget, messy slasher, with many viewing it as poorly made. Its flaws and frequently cited. Its flaws are frequently cited, but it has some appeal for lovers of obscure holiday horror. And it finishes in last place on the third tier. So not quite last overall. That still goes to Monster Dog. One of you voted this in first. One of you in second. 4 of you in third. 2 in fourth. And none of you voted in fifth. Only 7 voters overall. So not many people have seen this film. I've seen it a couple of times. It's not very good. I think I remember renting this in the hope that I was getting Silent Night, Deadly Night. But I did, because they would change titles on movies in the UK sometimes in the 80s, because either they underperformed in the US or for whatever reason the US title didn't translate over here. They would change the titles. And I think I rented this in the hope that it was Silent Night, Deadly Night, and clearly it wasn't. But yeah. Daz says, I'm biased towards British horror, but this is a fun Christmas slasher. Great urinal scene. That's usually what your wife tells you when you get married. What was it? This looked like it was, let's have a look at this. This looked like it was filmed with a camcorder. Shocking. Yeah, it's not great. It's not great. To quote you, Darren, where did you drag this from? What? When did I say that? Is that when I'm talking to Frank and asking where he picks a lot of his movies from? Myers Mad 316 says, great movie, Don't Open Till Christmas. Took forever for me to find this one on a good VHS. Really liked the ending. I can't remember the ending, in all honesty. Don't Open Till Christmas had a lot of behind-the-scenes issues, and it shows. Silent Night, Deadly Night is a better watch, said Rick M. Myers Fan 73 says, can't remember this one. I'm abstaining, but it sounds absolutely shite. Pat says, haven't seen it. Have to look for it. Yeah, don't look too hard, Pat. Best thing about it was the cover art. I do like the cover art for this. It is good. It is just been re-released, I think, Pat, on Blu-ray over here, or 4K. I think it's just Blu-ray, if I remember right. Edmund Purdon was in Pieces and Absurd. Was he really? Okay. Yeah, it was from one of Frank's picks. Okay, let's push on. We have 4 titles left. C.H.U.D. Cannibalistic Humanoid Underground Dwellers. Released on August the 31st, 1984, with a budget of 1.25 million. I find that very hard to believe. Box office was 4.7 million in the US. So kind of an okay return, I guess. Rotten Tomatoes have it at 43%. Directed by Douglas Cheek, with music by Martin Cooper and David A. Hughes. John Hurd, Daniel Daniel Stern, and Christopher Curry. In New York City, people disappear mysteriously into sewer tunnels. A police officer and a homeless shelter advocate investigate and discover that subterranean humanoid monsters known as C.H.U.Ds are behind the disappearance. Considered a cult classic, critics note what while it's narratively inconsistent, it delivers solid B-movie thrills, practical creature design, and social commentary about homeless populations and urban neglect. 15 seconds left to vote, folks. 18 of you have voted on this. Wow, okay. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The vote is over. And C.H.U.D finishes 4th place on the 3rd tier. Nobody voted it in first place. 4 of you voted it in second, 11 in third, 3 in fourth, and none of you voted it in 5th place. Bud there was a C.H.U.D too, weren't there? You've just reminded me. I forgot about that. Cannibalistic humanoid underground dweller. It's like they made a movie about my ex-wife, says Brandon. Ouch. Never seen C.H.U.D. I know the dad and Mark from Home Alone are in it, says Daz. Myers Mad 316 says they made a movie about my mother-in-law. Great, this gets my phone. Got all these like this 80s humor going on in here as well. They made him C.H.U.D the Bud. I thought it was Bud the C.H.U.D was more fun. These vids really educate me on the 80s and 70s, mainly the 70s. Much appreciated, man. No worries, Teal Kit. Glad you're enjoying it. C.H.U.D is a championship 80s video rental classic. Great effects and solid tier 3. Contamination hazard urban disposal is what C.H.U.D is revealed to actually stand for within the movie. Is it really? I'd have to go back and watch it again. I haven't seen it since it came out. And I've got no interest in watching it again. Paul says, I like C.H.U.D, but have a soft spot for decent creature features. The sequel is an outright comedy, though. Daniel Stern is one of those blokes who was born aged 40. Yeah, absolutely. I voted fourth by mistake. I was trying to vote it third. I don't think it would make much difference, Chester. Don't worry about it. Lee Wilson says, if I remember right, you don't see a lot of them. What, the C.H.U.Ds? They are kind of like Muppets, aren't they, or something? I did go back and look at some clips from the film just to remind myself of it. Just light up eyes and that. Okay, let's kick off the next vote. I'm gonna have a little drink as well while this is going on. So we are now voting on Children of the Corn. 90 seconds to vote for Children of the Corn. Good for you, Teal Kit. Thank you for joining us. Early noughties, baby. Okay, Children of the Corn, March the 9th, 1984 was the release date. Budget of $3 million. Box office of 14.6. Directed by Fritz Kirsch. Music by Jonathan Elias. Peter Horton. Linda Hamilton, who obviously had 2 horror movies, as some of you might say, in 1984. John Franklin, Courtney Gaines, Robbie Kiger, and Anne-Marie McAvoy. In the town of Gatlin, Nebraska, the local children, led by Isaac and Malachi, worship a mysterious entity known as He Who Walks Behind the Rose. The children murder all the adults in town as sacrifices. A couple, Bert and Vicky, driving through the region, get entangled when Bert accidentally hits a child. They attempt to escape, discover the cult, and fight to survive. It's pretty grim, this film, I think. I always find it really unsettling. 5 seconds left to vote, folks. 2, 1, 0. There we go. Like I say, big year for Linda Hamilton. Children of the Corn finishes first place in the second tier. 2 votes in first place, 14 in second, 3 in third, 8 in fourth, and 1 in fifth. There are some good jump scares in Children of the Corn. I always find, I just feel like it's a movie a bit like, we were talking about Threads earlier on, where there's absolutely not an ounce of hope in that film. And I always feel that like that with Children of the Corn as well. I always feel like it's got very sort of almost like Wicker Man type vibes as well. Adam practically makes us family. Teal Kit says, just looked it up. The sequel is called C.H.U.D the Bud. I thought, was it C.H.U.D the Bud? I thought it was Bud the C.H.U.D. Okay, never mind. Get the beers out, Darren. I'm having myself a little vodka tonic, actually, which I'm enjoying. Daz says, are any of the million Children of the Corn films any good? I think the first one, and that's about it, really. I don't know. I think I saw the first 3. I'm pretty sure I did. but I only remember the first one being a decent watch. Brandon says, I grew up in Oklahoma, and the kids in this reminds me of some of the kids I went to school with. Jesus. I saw Children of the Corn on theatrical release in 84. I didn't like it then, and it hasn't aged well for me. All right, that's cool that you did see it in the cinema, Don Mac. Tony Four Eye says, I have a soft spot for Children of the Corn. Loved it as a kid, but watched it recently, and it was a bit boring. The Shape 78 says, love Children of the Corn for the nostalgia. Doesn't hold up as well, but still had great taglines. Outlander and He Wants You Too, Malachi. Yeah. I like the first one more than the sequel, says Chester. Myers Mad 316 says, we lived near a cornfield when I was 3, and my mother always said she was going to give me to the Children of the Corn. Scared the shit out of me for years, but have a hard time getting through this now. Okay. It's interesting that a lot of you are finding that as you've watched Children of the Corn years later, that it's not how you remember it. It's probably a bit, a bit dull, a bit boring now. How many Children of the Corn sequels were made? I don't know. It was quite a lot. Didn't we get like Shark of the Corn as well? I think there is. I think there's a Sharks of the Corn. It should have been so much better, says Lee Wilson. Dave says Children of the Corn has a terrific jump scare. Aside from the Jeepers Creepers, this film made people stay away from cornfields. That would be if you had cornfields. We don't have too many. Well, not too many that are accessible around here. Paul Rose says Children is a solid movie, a bit slow for frequent watches, though. There are a gazillion sequels. Haven't seen them all. Yeah, I've no interest in seeing any of those sequels. Linda Hamill's second best horror of 85. 85? This is 84. Children of the Corn is dreadfully boring. Yeah, a lot of people are saying that. But yeah, it's finished. At the moment, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's 6th overall and first in the second tier. Amityville of the Corn. Yeah, that's another one, isn't it? That's got a hunt. Well, probably, I think there's around about 25, 30 Amityville movies. Somebody actually gave us a number of how many Amityville the number was, how many Amityville sequels there were in a TSL live episode we did once. You're too classy for this crowd, Darren. I had you as a G&T man, but vodka tonic, I hope it's Grey Goose and and near that Glen shite. This is a Scottish vodka that I'm actually drinking, and I forget the title of it now. It begins with a B, B-A-R, I can't remember now. But it's a vodka that I've discovered recently that I'm really into. I have another bottle arriving tomorrow, actually. Steve Ross said, I'd rather watch paint dry and grass grow simultaneously than watch this now. I did enjoy it as a kid, though. Okay. 10. 10 in total, says Brandon, including a remake. Wow. Who could be bothered? Who could be bothered? Right, let's kick off this next vote. Body Double. One of my favorites. One of my favorites of this year completely. October the 26th, 1984. Budget of 10 million. A gross of 8.8 million domestic. It was dubbed a commercial failure versus its box office. Its budget. Mixed critical reception. Considered flawed but stylistically bold. Brian De Palma, music by Pino Donaggio. And if you the music that I use at the start of this show when I'm doing the intro and reading through the stuff, that's kind of a take on the Body Double music done by White Bat Audio. I really like this film. I really like Craig Wasson. I don't know why Craig Wasson didn't do many more films. He did Elm Street 3. He did this and a couple of other things, but then just sort of faded away. I love this kind of sort of almost like De Palma's Giallo tribute, if you like. Also a kind of spin on Hitchcock's Rear Window as well. And not only do you get like a great sort of whodunit in this film and a pretty violent movie as well, you also get the Frankie Goes to Hollywood scene in this film, Whereas he goes into this kind of nightclub and the band are in there playing the song while he's walking through this nightclub. You just stop the vote there. Oops. It's just knocked over onto the next one. Where did it end up? Second in the second tier. I wanted it to be higher, but no, I'm happy with that. 16 of you voted. 4 of you voted it in first place. 9 of you in second. 2 of you in third. 1 of you in fourth. And nobody voted in fifth place. The synopsis is Jake Scully, an actor who lost his role due to claustrophobia, house sits for a friend and becomes obsessed with watching his neighbor perform an erotic dance. He then witnesses strange events, a murder, and becomes entangled in voyeurism, deception, and guilt, uncovering a dark conspiracy. Yeah, pretty nasty. I remember, if you remember rightly, I've got the 4K Steelbook up there as well. I think it's Deborah Shelton who's in this, gets killed via a huge hand drill, which has got a bit on it, which is maybe like 2 or 3 foot long and yay wide, like that big. And he drills her through the stomach, through the floor. It's a really nasty old sequence. Myers says, Scottish vodka. I didn't know the Scots made vodka. The stuff they made in Great Escape. Exactly, yeah. Don't remember anything about this. Body Double is great De Palma film, says Kingslayer. Love Body Double for years. I thought the lead was Bill Mayer. He does kind of look a bit like him, doesn't he? Body Double was pure class. Video shop iconic cover. Body Double is a good time, says Rick M. Brett Patrick says, damn, forgot you were in love with Body Double. Sends him 199. I think that's what you're trying to say, Brett. Thank you. And I just listened to your Dress to Kill episode, which was 2 hours of you and Pat perving over Angie Dickinson. But it was a lot of fun. One of De Palma's best, says Don Mac. Body Double is better than Dress to Kill by miles. It is. I agree with you on that. Dress to Kill hasn't aged very well, I don't think. Brandon Collins says, Craig Wasson pops up a lot in audiobooks. I listen to these days. Really? Okay. You must be knocking on now because this film's, 41 years old? I actually have a copy of Body Double on RCA video disc, if anyone remembers those. I do remember those. I didn't ever have one, but I do remember them. Shamrock Ball says it's not like De Palma to copy Hitchcock. Early Barbara Crampton in the beginning. Is she in the beginning? I'm trying to remember now. Is it his wife? When he walks in on them shagging? Is that Barbara Crampton? Probably is, right? Just casually adding these flicks to the list. Oh, Teal Kit. Yeah, you'll enjoy this one. You'll enjoy it. I remember those just in. Wasson was great in Ghost Story. I forgot he was in Ghost Story as well. Good point, Myers fan. Every time I hear the Frankie Goes to Hollywood song, Relax, I think of this movie. Yeah, exactly. Brandon says, Shamrock, I've never seen someone on shameless in their influences. Even Tarantino pulls from multiple sources. De Palma just has straight up Hitchcock fetish. Why not? Why not? It's a tribute rather than a rip-off. A bit like Neil Marshall with Doomsday. Patrick Bateman in the American Psycho book repeatedly watches the drill scene. Yes, that's right. I'd forgotten about that. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. Craig Wasson stopped acting and became a chat show host under the name Bill Mayer. We have potatoes in Scotland, Brandon, mainly for frying at the chipper with our battered Mars bars. Myers Mad says, my mate's dad actually has a wee allotment for his tatties, but we never made vodka with them, but I will be now. I shall, let me tell, this is going to do my head in now. I'm going to try and remember that name of that vodka for you. 1 second. Bara. Hebridean vodka. There you go. It's called Bara. B-A-R-R-A Distillers. Hebridean vodka. There we go. Good stuff. Pretty good stuff. Made it myself. Okay. De Palma was Hitchcock mixed with Giallo back then. He was. Right. We have I think we have one left. Is it just the one left? Let's have a look. Bloodbath at the House of Death. For those of you that remember Kenny Everett, he made a film in 1984, directed by Ray Cameron. It was Kenny Everett, Pamela Stevenson, who's Billy Connolly's wife. Vincent Price was in it, Gareth Hunt, Don Warrington, a load of kind of British TV actors and things like that. A comedy horror parody. A pair of scientists are sent to investigate strange phenomena at Headstone Manor, aka the House of Death, previously the site of a violent massacre of 18 guests. Satanic monks, poltergeists, cloning, and alien monks all factor into the mayhem. It's viewed as a camp, over-the-top spoof. Critics generally disparaged it, and it has a reputation as a cult oddity rather than a successful horror comedy. Just thought I'd throw this little Brit flick in there. Again, haven't seen it for a long, long time. Was a huge Kenny Everett fan, but I'm guessing this won't fare too well because a lot of our American friends probably won't have seen it. 15 seconds left, folks. Only 10 of you have voted so far. We have our final 6 top-tier movies already. We'll talk through those in a moment. 2 seconds left. And that's it. That's the final movie. So, one of you voted Bloodbath House of Death in first place. Nobody in second. 1 in third. 6 of you voted it in fourth. And 2 of you voted it in fifth. I'll just have a look at some of the comments before we move over to the final tier here. That's an awful cover. That's very sort of like a lot of the artwork that was attributed to Kenny Everett. I remember having a Kremen album of his, and it's kind of a similar look and feel to this cover. The Hebrides, thanks, Darren. There you go. This movie taught me to always close my curtains. Peepers. You know this movie, Marisol? Really? Okay. That's really cool. Brandon says, I have a 1.75 bottle of Grey Goose in my cupboard. I haven't cracked open yet. I have a similar thing. I have I think it's 3 litres. A 3 litre Belvedere bottle of vodka, which has Bond branding on it, Spectre. And it's been in my cupboard for over 10 years now, I think. When was Spectre? 2015? So 10 years it's been in my cupboard. And it was gifted to us all at work. We all got a bottle. And yeah, it's been in my cupboard for the last 10 years. I still haven't cracked it open. I don't know whether I ever will. I know it's worth a few quid now. But then there may be a time when, as I'm down on my luck and I can't afford a bottle of vodka, I might have to crack that open. But it's also, it lights up. It's got a switch underneath, and you turn it on, and the bottle glows. It looks great in the cabinet. Okay. Also known as my wife of her time of the month, it becomes blood. Oh, Jesus Christ. Thank you very much, Myers Matt. I absolutely hate Bloodbath. Dreadful shite, says Tony Four Eyes. Craig Phillips says, just want to drop in and say hello. Been at my daughter's golf match. We'll rewatch tomorrow morning. Thank you, Craig. Do it, Brandon. Grey Goose is bloody expensive over here. Hence, I always get it at duty free. Thank God for having to travel to work. Yeah, that's the thing. Why is Grey Goose cheaper in the US, right? It's French vodka. And we pay a fortune for it over here. It's only coming across the bloody pond. Can't vote as I remember very little, says Paul Rose. But Kenny is a legend. All I remember is the Jaws theme on strings as someone creeps up a corridor, opens the door to Kenny on the toilet with a cello. Do you mind? Yes. Dave McRae says, Friday 4 sits at 25% on Rotten Tomatoes. Elm Street, a rock solid 94%. I'll admit 25% is low for Friday 4. It deserves more love, but let's be real. It's nowhere near the 94% that Elm Street earned. I agree with you, Dave. Okay, let's run through this now. So, in first place, we have And I'll flip through these here. We have Friday the 13th, the final chapter, with 35 votes in first place. In second place, we have A Nightmare on Elm Street on 33 votes. In third place, we have The Terminator on 29 votes in the first tier. Gremlins is in fourth with 24 votes. Terror in the Isles. I'm so glad this made it to the top tier. Only had 12 votes in first tier, but it had 11 in the second tier. So those votes aggregated rack up. Children of the Corn. 2 votes in the second tier there. It finishes first in the second tier. And a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th overall. Body Double finishes 8th overall. Company of Wolves, 9 overall. Night of the Comet, 10th. Firestarter, 11th. Silent Night, Deadly Night, 12th. Toxic Avenger, 13th. C.H.U.D, 14th. Razorback, 15th. Threads, 16th. I've got this wrong. 1 second. Okay, let's go back. Children of the Corn finished in 6th. Body Double, 7th. Company of Wolves in 8th. Night of the Comet, 9th. Firestarter, 10th. Silent Night, Deadly Night, 11th. Toxic Avenger, 12th. C.H.U.D, 13th. Razorback, 14th. Threads, 15th. Dreamscape, 16th. The Mutilator, 17th. Don't Open Till Christmas, 18th. Bloodbath at the House of Death, 19th. And Monster Dog in 20th position. So that means that Friday the 13th chapter, final chapter, and A Nightmare on Elm Street will go through to the final in around about 5 or 6 weeks' time. I may have to, I will have to take a break in mid-October, just because I have a guest staying and I won't be able to do it on the Thursday night. There may be a stream that night, but I won't be able to do this on the Thursday night. So that's it, folks. Total of 88 participants this week, which I'm really pleased with. Like I said, at one point we hit 105 people in the chat, which is amazing. Really pleased with this. I love the fact that it's gathering momentum week after week. I really enjoy doing the teases during the week, all the YouTube shorts, all the stuff on Instagram. If you're not following me on Instagram, or a TSL Movie Podcast on Instagram, that's where you'll find all the stuff for this. It's a bit confusing because I use both the Slaughtered Lamb account for Mr. Sandsman and for the Slaughtered Lamb stuff as well. But all week I'm kind of teasing these episodes, dropping shorts, dropping, posts about what movies are included. If some of you want to prep, watch some of these movies before you vote on them, then on Instagram you can see which movies we're going to be doing. And I also dropped the teaser trailer when I put the thumbnail up for the episode as well. And you can see on there a kind of, a sort of Terror in the Isles-esque sort of trailer with regards to what movies are going to be included for that year. Let's have a look at the chat again before I go. It's midnight now. I don't think Dave's going live tonight. He usually goes live on a Thursday night, but I don't think he is tonight. Daz says, absolutely, Dave, Nightmare belongs at number 1. Tony Four Eyes says, get the little Grey Goose knockoff, Darren. What's it called? There is a little not too far away from me, but I'm worried that I might be suffering burns or something like that in my throat if I drink that. Brandon says, Grey Goose is expensive here. When I used to drink more regularly, I'd buy Pinnacle. Okay. More sensible talk from the legend Dave McRae. Couldn't agree more. This is mental cult-like voting. Myers Mad says, I blame the government down. Scottish government charge a minimum charge per unit these days, stealing money from my want to get drunk. No mention of 1984. This is what happens, you see. You do these episodes, you sit here for 2 hours slogging your guts out. People don't say, well done, Darren. They say, no mention of Black Devil Doll from Hell. I'm shocked. Just pick the faults. A week I've spent planning this and executing it, Rick M. Terminator, says Myers Mad 316. Nightmare on Elm Street deserves number 1, says Teal Kit. Myers Mad 316 says, damn, Friday the 13th, part 4. Great stream, Darren. Probably my favourite one so far. Keep up the great work. Some epic movies this week. We'll be watching Slaughtered Lamb tomorrow. A double whammy of greatness. Thank you, Miles. That's what I like to hear. Not that I didn't put your favourite film on the list. I think with this, there has to be one of the stipulations that I have for myself is that I have to have seen, or at least have a little bit of knowledge about the movies that I'm, asking you to vote on. So I don't just pick, because when you actually Google it, in 1984, there's probably over 100 horror movies that came out. I was hard pushed to find 20 that everybody would have heard of. And there were probably some of you that hadn't heard of some of these. So it's quite difficult to get that, that number, 20 films that people can sit there and vote on. If we continue this into the 90s, which I'm not sure we will, when there was a kind of hell of a lack of horror, it's going to make it difficult. It really will make it difficult, the 90s. I might have to, if we do the 90s, I might have to cut it down to 10 horror movies a year or something like that, because there wasn't a significant amount of horror in the 90s. But what I can tell you is 1985, I just had a quick glance at the titles that were around in 1985. I've got to tell you folks, there's some great stuff. So I've just made a note of 20. This is without properly going into it. I've just made a note of 23 from a quick Google search. Okay, so next week we're going to be talking about the likes of Day of the Dead, Return of the Living Dead, Reanimator, Fright Night, Demons, Phenomena, or Creepers as it's known, Cat's Eye, Life Force, Silver Bullet, The Stuff, Ghoulies, House, Hills Have Eyes Part 2, Elm Street 2, Friday the 13th Part 5, Spookies, Witchboard, Transylvania 65000, Once Bitten, and Howling 2, Your Sister is a Werewolf. That's just me doing a quick search. So I'm going to filter some of these, and there's probably more. I'm going to get a bigger list and filter it down to 20. But next month's going to be a cracker, and I don't know what is going to. I have no idea what is going to be in that top 2 next month. Will it be Day of the Dead? Will it be Return of the Living Dead? Will it be Reanimator, Elm Street 2, House, Silver Bullet? There's so much stuff there that could potentially, trouble that top tier. So looking forward to it. I'll drop a note tomorrow with a kind of rough list on Instagram of the kind of titles that I'm going to include, and then refine it over the weekend, and then I'll post the photographs of the artwork of the titles that we are going to include. Once again, folks, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I really do look forward to this, especially with so many of you turning up as well. Even now, when we finish, there's still 70 of you watching, which is just amazing. And as I said, we'll be going live tomorrow night over on TSL Movie Podcast at, I say tomorrow night, it's tomorrow afternoon, 5 o'clock UK time. 12 p.m. EST, talking about all the best and worst movies of 1996. I think it is. Yeah, it is. We've done every year since 1980 over on that channel. So that's a good 16, 17 episodes in we are on that series. But for now, thank you so much, everybody. I really do appreciate it. And keep an eye out on Instagram. Go over there. I think my Instagram link is probably down in the chat below. Go over there and check out the page, because you'll find out most of the information about this show first on Instagram. That's where I kind of like to keep everybody informed over there. All right. Thanks again, folks. I shall see you very soon. Cheers.